Sally Nugent gives police evidence of Richard Frediani harassment. Sally Nugent walked into the BBC newsroom with her usual calm demeanour. She was the woman of the bright screen, her voice was precise, her eyes soft, and she maintained a professional demeanour no matter what was happening on or off the air. But no one knew that, for the past 3 years, every step she took in the BBC corridors was like walking on glass. Because that was where Richard Frediani was. The editor of BBC Breakfast, the man who was considered the architect of British morning. But behind the scenes, he was a nightmare. Every breath is a control. At first, it was just a shady comment. Who are you trying to attract in that rest today? I always thought you were too soft to do political news. It's a wonder a woman with such a sweet voice still exists in this day and age, Sally. Frediani never spoke loudly. Always low enough that no one could hear her, except her. She would laugh when asked, because like all long-term victims, she began to wonder if she was imagining things. But as the words became actions, the random touches on her shoulder when no one was looking, the late-night texts saying I'm actually better at acting in bed, Sally knew she no longer had the option of staying silent. Evidence of a tired man. Sally began to archive everything. She recorded conversations after every meeting. She backed up messages to her personal hard drive, kept Frediani's ambiguously worded emails. She even kept detailed notes of every interaction, date, time, location, and witnesses. A silent investigation had lasted 8 months. She knew that to confront someone like Frediani, someone with status, prestige, and a network of allies, it would take more than courage. She needed proof. Finally, in early June, she walked into Greater Manchester Police with her lawyer. A thick bag of documents was placed on the interrogation table. She said, "I'm not saying this to save myself. I'm saying this to save those who come after me from another day of hell." The storm behind the screen. The news that Sally Nugent had given evidence against Frediani exploded like a bombshell in British television. The major news organisations, The Guardian, Sky News, ITV, reported it within 2 hours. The hashtag spoke like Sally went viral. Hundreds of women, from other broadcasters, news agencies, small studios, shared similar stories. A campaign was launched overnight, BBC Without Fear. Frediani, WHN he learned he was under investigation. Cal led it an internal political conspiracy and said he had no recollection of any wrongdoing. Police declined to comment, but sources said the records Sally provided were clear, coherent and sufficient to open a criminal investigation. Two-faced television. While the public was beginning to believe in Sally Nugent as a symbol of resistance to abuse of power, the BBC was becoming a stage set for tense drama. The 10th floor executive boardroom at Broadcasting House was packed with big names: the director of content, the head of personnel, the TV union. One person in the room said, "If we get it wrong, it will be Jimmy Savile again." An independent audit was launched. Frediani's name was immediately removed from the internal access system, emails were frozen, and BBC Breakfast was moved to a caretaker team. Sally went on air every morning as if nothing had happened. But viewers noticed that her eyes were different. Calmer. Every word was a declaration. "I am no longer afraid." Face to face in the interrogation room. On June 14, after nearly 2 weeks of investigation, Richard Frediani was summoned to the police station as the prime suspect in the harassment case. The police presented their first piece of evidence, a recording of an internal meeting last year, in which Frediani mocked Sally for her weak leadership skills in front of nearly 20 employees. When asked, "Do you remember TS situation?" Frediani replied coldly, "That was professional feedback." "I don't apologize for demanding perfection." The police continued to send messages that said things like, "You should know, at this station, the favored ones are the obedient ones. If you don't want your face to disappear from prime time, remember who coordinates the roster." Frediani was still smiling, but sweat was starting to form on his forehead. Those who are no longer silent. Sally Nugent's courage was not limited to individuals. A wave of testimony followed. The names of those who had quietly withdrawn from the BBC emerged one by one. Marianne Hogg, sound man: "Frediani used to stand behind me while I adjusted the microphone and say, 'Women should use their hands for something other than the volume knob.'" Gavin Dell, video editor: "He didn't touch me, but I saw him mute Saul Y in the control room, as a silent punishment." A former trainee revealed, "He said I should learn to imitate Nugent's silence if I wanted to survive in the industry." "I left after 3 months. The testimonies piled up. The police's special branch of investigations said it was a systematic pattern of behavior, shielded by power and prestige." The night called. One night, around 2 a.m., Sally received a call from an unknown number. It was Frediani. His voice was hoarse, as if he had been drinking or crying. "Sally. I know what you're thinking. But I'm not the monster you're making up." Sally replied softly, "I didn't make up anything." "You wrote everything I'm saying." There was a long silence. Then Frediani sighed. "You're the only person I ever thought could replace me. I was wrong to want it my way." She didn't answer. The call ended. The next day, Frediani was formally detained for criminal investigation.